All right, guys, we're through the holidays. We're in the month of January. The numbers are out. We're going to dive right in today to see where we are in this deep winter market. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is your realtor Nick Isgro with eXp Realty here in the state of Maine. As you know, on this channel we cover all things real estate here in the state of Maine, particularly in the central Maine market. If that's of interest to you or adds value to you, please go ahead and hit the like button on this video, hit the subscribe button, smash that little alarm bell, and you'll be notified every time we put out new content. Now we're going to dive right in today because the numbers are looking great, and as we've been saying all along, we expected this winter to be a little bit stronger. That's the way we've been trending as opposed to last winter, and going to give us a little bit of insight as to where we might be headed as we move towards the spring market. I know it seems like it's coming so early, but another month away we're going to be headed right there. So as we get into it, pay attention to the numbers if you're a buyer or a seller, because when you get to the end of this video, you're going to have a good idea of what this market looks like now and what you might expect if you're waiting until the spring. All right, I'm going to jump right in here with new listings. New listings in the month of December, we had 83 new listings. Now, certainly as we look at the graph, we can see the trend, definitely a little bit of a dip from the previous month, but that is to be expected. That is the seasonal trend. You can see the same thing happen last year. Interestingly enough, however, we're pacing ahead of the previous December. So we knew that December 2020 was an extremely competitive market still. You can see though, it actually came to a much slower halt when we got into the winter months than it did this year. More new listings coming on. Now, we talked about this last month. One of the reasons for that is because sellers are understanding that the buying market is still very active, and the buyers that are out there right now are incredibly motivated to get into a home. And if they can get into a home prior to hitting that spring rush, they're going to do it. So it's a great time to list right now this winter, and people are doing it. All right, so we've covered how many new listings came onto the market during the month of December here in the central Maine market. Well, how many of those sold? Take a look at the numbers. 166 sold listings during the month. Now, a year ago was about 184, so not too far away, a little bit of a dip from a year ago, but really by and large, we are just continuing the steady trend of the seasonal market. Still lots of people out there, even right before Christmas, right before the holidays, getting into the homes. Going to be interesting to see what's gone under contract since then, so we can see what held through the holidays and what's going to end up closing this month when we get to the end of January. So we just got through sold numbers, a little bit of a dip, but still looking strong. New listings, definitely a dip from the month before. What did that do to the overall inventory? Total active listings in the month of December, as we close out the month headed into this month, January, we're beginning the month with 220 active listings. So definitely a squeeze in the market. Although if you look at the trend line, we actually had fewer listings last February and March than we did in the month of December this last year. So total active listings, definitely going down. We have a tight market, but overall, not as tight as it was as the beginning of last spring market, February and March. We had less than 200 listings in those months, 220 starting the new year, coming out of the gates, looking strong. However, keep in mind, if you are a buyer out there, it's still a very tight market. We're gonna jump right into that a little bit more as we go over to the absorption rate. Now, if you remember, the absorption rate is basically how many months of supply of homes do we have in the market. So if we were to sell all of the inventory that we have in the market right now, no new listings coming on, how long would it take us to flush through the market with all of that entire inventory? 1.29 months of inventory, less than 1.5 months of inventory on the market. Now, you've heard me say in this channel plenty of times, a normalized market, where it's not just this crazy seller's market, a normalized market where it's healthy and strong, 6 months of supply. So this is just another indicator, by the way, why I don't think that prices are gonna take any kind of massive tumble, barring some major outside event this year, because as long as you have these kinds of depressed inventories, it's gonna be very difficult to suppress any kind of pricing on the seller side, because the reality is there's a backlog of buyers. We've been talking about that over and over and over again. The buyers are there. They want to get into the homes. They are strong financially. They're not going anywhere. They're not changing their life plans. They want to get into a home. So with this inventory being this tight in the month of December, going to be very interesting as we move forward. And I say that because the overall inventory is a lot less than it was last year at this time. Last year we had 1.8 roughly, closing out the month of December, headed into the new year on the absorption rate. So almost a half month less inventory now than we did a year ago headed into the new year. Really going to be interesting to see what happens on the seller side as we move into the heat of the spring market. Now, this isn't meant to scare anybody off by any means. If you look at the trend line, last March, April, May, we actually had less inventory. And if you remember last March, April, May, that was a lot of the time that we were hearing all of those stories about people going in and having, 10, 20 bids on a house, and people offering just insane prices, waiving inspection periods and things like that. You can see that was only a month of inventory. So we're by no means at the lowest point that we've seen in the last 12 months, just a little bit on the tight side. You would think with this squeezed inventory, it might have an effect on the pricing. Let's see what's going on with the pricing. We're gonna jump over to the sale to price ratio. As you know, if you watch these videos every month, the sale to price ratio is how much of a percentage of the list price did the home sell for. So if you have a home that's $100,000 and you sell it at $100,000, the sale to list price ratio is 100%. Headed out of December into January, we're at a sale to price ratio on average of 97%. So no major move in the last couple of months. You can see buyers are by and large able to do some negotiating. Some of that might have to do with the fact that some of those prices coming out of the late fall into the early winter might have been a little bit inflated, because that's a time when typically the appreciation tends to slow down. We expect the appreciation to pick back up a little bit heavier in the spring. But with that, it comes a little bit of negotiating room. So sellers are still getting by and large what they're asking for, but buyers are able to find some room for negotiation right now. Now, the last number that I always like to go over when we wrap these up is the average days on market, because we're still hearing a lot of those stories about people putting their homes on the market, having them listed for a day or a week, and having multiple offers. Well, those are still happening, but the circumstances have to be just right for that. Looking here in the Central Maine market, the average days on market headed out of December into January, 29 days. So running almost a month on average of list time before you get it under contract. So good news for you sellers out there. If you've had a home and you've been listening to a lot of these anecdotal stories about how fast things are selling, and it's been on the market for a week or two and you're starting to get a little anxious, don't get anxious. There's no reason to. You can see on average, it's taking about 29 days in order to sell your home, as opposed to last late spring, early summer, we were in the low teens. Now it's about 30 days, 29 days on average, and still getting 97% of the sale to price ratio. So still the prices are remaining strong. So don't freak out. Don't get too worried about it. If you're on the market, you've had your house on the market for a couple of weeks, you're right on the money. You're right where you should be, and an offer should be forthcoming in the next couple of weeks. All right, guys, so as we head into the month of January, that really does wrap up all of the numbers that we like to review on here to give you a good general sense of where we are in the market, which is by and large this long 2-year holding pattern that we've been in of, frankly, a very strong seller's market. You can see there's some opportunities for the buyers out there. Rates are still very low. So as long as that holds out, I think we're going to continue in this pattern. We do expect this to heat up as we move into the spring, and I am seeing through this, as we saw earlier, a few of these numbers are looking definitely stronger than we had last year. A little bit more sellers remaining active through the winter, but less overall active listings. So a tight market for sure, but one that is still robust and moving forward. And I think that we're just going to see more and more of this. What's going to be interesting to see this year, particularly as we hit February and March, is where do the sellers that have been holding on the sidelines waiting for the spring market make their move, and how many of them do that at one time in order to have any kind of drastic impact, and what's going to happen with the buyers as new buyers coming out of the winter are going to start re-emerging and coming back onto the market, what pressure that puts on the appreciation, because there's been a lot of guesswork on how much of an appreciation we're going to have this year. Zillow, Goldman Sachs being very aggressive, others less So we're gonna have to just wait and see. But overall, things are looking good. And as always, if you are currently in the market, if you're buying, selling, if you've been thinking about buying or selling, please go ahead and drop a comment below. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions at all, please feel to reach out. That's what I'm here for. Again, my name is Nick Isgro with eXp Realty here in Central Maine. Thanks so much for sticking around, and until next week, I'll see you next time.